My name is Les Wicker, and this is the program called 3 Things You Must Understand. And the first one of these 3 things that we've been talking about for the last 4 programs has to do with evolution. And essentially what we've said is that Darwinian evolution is the biggest lie that has ever been swallowed by mankind. Evolution is atheism disguised as science. And if this was my last day on earth and I had the opportunity to talk with you just before I died, this is one of the things I would want to tell you, is that evolution is the emperor that has no clothes. And sometimes I wonder just how long people are going to stand around and pretend that he does. Well, we'll talk about some more of those things, but I would very much like to get your personal response and reaction to each one of these points that I've been making on the broadcast. Or if you have a question or a comment of any kind that's related to the things I've discussed, I hope that in a few weeks to begin to air some of the comments and questions that you may have. You can call us here at 274-5003. You can email us at 3things@ashevillechurchofchrist.com. Our regular website is www.ashevillechurchofchrist.com. And if you would like, I know sometimes when you're flipping through the channel and you may get this program and probably maybe not the next one, or you're out of town or whatever, if you would like a copy of a particular program, or if you want the whole set eventually, Lord willing, we'll have those available and we will send it if you tell us what you want. VHS, a DVD, or an audio, we will do our absolute best to give you what you want. And incidentally, if you call, you can pretty much expect to get an answering machine. We just don't have the manpower here to keep someone on the phone all the time. So if you call, just expect to get an answering machine, and please don't let that discourage you from leaving your message. If you would like a DVD, if you would like a VHS, if you would like an audio of the program, tell us what you want, and we will be glad to try to get it out to you. Leave us your name and your address. If you have a comment about the program, I'll try to use that on programs preceding and make it part of the program. We have some limitations here as far as the format of the program goes. I can't talk directly to you, but we'll try to make it as conversational a dialogue as we can through your comments and questions. So keep that in mind, and we appreciate and incidentally, you will never, ever, this is my promise to you, whenever you call and ask for something, you will never be asked for a donation. We are not trying to get money. We are not trying this is no fundraiser here. You can call, and you don't have to be afraid that you're going to be solicited for donations. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're trying to tell the truth about the things that are of greatest importance. Okay. Last time we were talking quite a bit about evolutionary scientists, how evolutionary scientists explain the origin of kinds, of different kinds, and particularly of the birds, and how birds are supposed to have evolved, and how evolutionary scientists explain the origin of those kinds. They believe that reptiles, like lizards, developed longer scales on their front legs that they used kind of like a fly swatter. And I may have showed this picture. This is typical of many of the things that you will see in books where you have a lizard basically growing longer scales, and then those scales becoming feathers, and all of a sudden here you have a blue jay taking off. Well, this is a fairy tale here. This is a big lie here. There is absolutely zero evidence that this sequence ever occurred. It doesn't matter whether you got millions of years, billions of years, it's not going to happen. We talked about the fact that feathers are highly specialized things, and apparently evolutionists never study the dynamics of flight and how extremely complex flight itself is. And I'm not going to go back and rehash all the things that we talked about before, but these creatures here were supposed to bat insects out of the air, but the insects that were supposed to be lower on the evolutionary ladder were already flying, that these creatures here were supposed to be swatting out of the air. We talked about the fact that all fly swatters have holes in them. The reason is when you go to swat a fly, air has to pass through the fly swatter and hit the fly. But if you try doing that with a wing, you try swatting a fly out of the air with a wing. This is stupid, folks. This is an insult to my intelligence. And what do they take me for? I am not that gullible, and you ought not to be that gullible. I'm not buying it. Well, all kinds of things like that we could talk about. But that's the level of intellect that we're following in our public schools, our universities, our media references, etc., today across this land and the world over. And it's totally false from its conception to its conclusion. Bring it up a little bit, Trish, there. Thank you. The devil must laugh every day and thinking, these people will believe anything. Just tell them they came from nothing, evolved from non-living matter by blind chance. Just tell them, they'll believe it. And sure enough, it's right. It's believed. For you well-informed evolutionary buffs out there, I am very aware of Archaeopteryx. I have examined the original fossil myself. In fact, it hasn't been but a few weeks ago that I saw the fossil of the one that has been published in books all over the world. So this one right here. And Archaeopteryx was a bird, and not a transitional form. But I have to tell you a little bit before we talk about that. I'll tell you a little bit about what happened when I was up there at the Natural History Museum in Washington. They had a film. And of course, it's a wonderful museum, but it's, after I took my family up there, and this is a photo album that we brought back, got all the, the sites. Here's the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. There's there's some of my children there. Got God all over the place, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are the words. They're right here in this photograph of Thomas Jefferson. And there's the memorial, there's the statue. But you can walk around Washington and you see God everywhere. He is, the Apostle Paul is quoted on the agricultural building. It's just, God is all over the place. But when you go to the Natural History Museum, guess what? It's atheistic evolution from the ground floor up. And there was a film there, and I happened to, it just made me angry. I just have to be honest with you. I was incensed by it. because hundreds and hundreds of school children go through this museum every day. I mean, the place is just crawling with children, bus loads of children, gullible, easily manipulated, will believe anything you tell them, basically. Young children will, and that's the ones that were seeing this film. But they had this film. I just took a photo of it. I don't know if you can see this very well, but you see this chimpanzee here, and here is a rat, basically, shrew, a rat, a small mammal. And the first thing this is the opening sequence of this film that they have going on automatically at the Natural History Museum all the time. It's going on right now. And if you were there right now, you would be seeing this film. Well, this film starts out saying something like, you always thought that you were descended directly from a lion, or you were related to the line of a chimpanzee or a monkey or an ape. But no, really farther back than that, you are related to this little rat-like creature. And in the film, it was very oriented toward children. The rat's name was Morgie, and it went on from there. But now this is what the point I wanted to make right here, though, is this is brainwashing, folks. This is brainwashing. When you give people the choice of two things, either one of which are wrong ultimately, but you don't give them a third choice, like that maybe you thought that you evolved from a common ancestor of the chimpanzee or the gorilla, but no, rather is it possible that you were created by a supernatural being, an eternal being like God? No, that was not the other choice. The other choice was this rat here. So you're giving the children the possibility of two choices, either of which are wrong. That's brainwashing, you see. That's brainwashing. And that's what's happening in our capital today. At the Natural History Museum today. You can go there right now and you can see this film right here. Well, make a long story short, I was so incensed by it. I went the next day, the family and I went, and I made lectures. There was about the film went on for about 10 minutes, and then there was about a 4-minute period in between where people would move in and out of this little theater area that they had, the auditorium area. And so I decided that I was going to make little lectures, little mini lectures in this. I mean, this is radical, I know, but this is radical foolishness too. When you're faced with radical foolishness, it takes some radical actions to combat it. So this is what I did, and I guess maybe I'm the only one that ever did this, I don't know, but I stood up at the end of each one of those. We got there about 11 o'clock that next day, and I said, folks, when the movie was over, and there's a lot more I could say about the movie, total atheism from the beginning to the end of it. And it was supposed to make you feel really good toward the end of it that you were a mammal. That was the point of the whole thing. You ought to be really, really happy that you're a member of the mammal classification. And there was big pumped up music at the end of it, dolphins jumping out of the water, and lions roaring. And then there's some creature, not a man, not an ape, not a chimpanzee, no species, but he's supposed to be some in between link. It's beating his chest and roaring, and we're supposed to connect with him because we're a mammal, and we're supposed to feel really good that we're in the classification of mammals. Well, I got up after the program. We got there about 11 o'clock. I got up. I said, folks, what you have seen is one of the most elaborate attempts at indoctrination and brainwashing that I have ever seen, that I have ever witnessed. I said, look, you can go downstairs in this very museum. On the bottom floor, they have a jar there. Looks like this. It's like a quart jar. Looks just like this. And guess what's on the inside of it? Well, there's a little skeleton. Well, it's a frog. This is probably not a very good illustration, but there's a frog in formaldehyde down there in the basement. And we noticed that. We looked at it. It actually, you could see the bones. I don't remember if you could see I don't remember if it was somehow transparent, but I can't remember exactly about that. But you could see the bones of the frog. Now, when we went upstairs, and if you've ever been there, there's a great rotunda, big, huge dome. And on one side is all of the fossils. They've got the dinosaurs and various fossils over there. But now, in that section, they've got a fossilized piece of rock. And I'm just going to kind of mimic my picture. This isn't exactly the way a frog looks like, but let's just say, it looked identical to the one that they had in formaldehyde downstairs. But now this one here is supposed to be 180 million years old. That's what the tag said right beside of it. This one here, the fossilized frog, was 180 million years old, but it was identical to the one that was in formaldehyde in the bottom floor. And this is what I was telling the people about. It says, well, where's the evolution? It's not here. It's not here. I'm not seeing it. Now, there was a lot of other things, like for example, the other one was, there were many of them. There was also, they had a pressed, you know what maple wing, maple leaf, the little seeds that flutter down like little helicopters. Well, it's not that big, obviously, but they had one that was just a real of course, they're not this big. They're about like this. But they had one of those fossilized in a little square cut out of a fossilized maple leaf. And then right beside it, they had a modern maple leaf that they just went out in the yard and got and put there. Now, this maple leaf here is supposed to be 20 million years old. And this one here is one you could just go out and pick off the ground right now. And I ask again, where's the evolution? It's not here. It's not here. In other words, there is no evidence for it. Now, we're talking about the Archaeopteryx. Let me tell you about the Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx wasn't just a bird. I mean, it was perfectly composed for flight. They have the fossil there. And it's got long, beautiful feathers, gracefully arranged tail feathers. Its primary feathers are beautiful, obviously arranged for flight. The Archaeopteryx wasn't just a bird. It was a beautiful bird at that. Feathers are highly specialized structures that have a hook and eyelet design. We talked a little bit about this last time. And if you were to look at it in a microscope, and this is the stem of the feather, and it has all these other little stems that come out, you know that there's about 20,000 between one of these stems here that come off of the main stem. There's about, an average bird, there's a little hook and a little eyelet, almost like Velcro, that bring those together to be light and strong. It goes all the way out to the end of the feather, and there's about 20,000 of them from there to there. Now, here's the point. Why is that significant? Well, because here. See, remember this? Remember this picture right here? This is what's taught in your public schools, by the way, right now, every day. Universities, nature programming. See this lizard here? Supposed to be becoming a bird right here. This lizard knows nothing about flight, knows nothing about the airfoil of a wing, knows nothing about aerodynamics, knows nothing about feathers, knows nothing, basically. All right? He lives off of instinct. But now, the point is that there is no way, and there's no evidence, that this creature here, the hard scale of a lizard or a turtle or an alligator, a reptile, becomes an extremely complex feather that is light and strong and is aerodynamic. Remember this illustration? How a wing, how the air flows over and across, creates a little turbulence here. The air molecules are spread out on the top and are denser on the bottom. So it creates high pressure underneath and lower pressure up here, and that creates lift. Does a lizard know anything about that? No. Doesn't know anything about that. But here it is. You see, here it is. They want us to believe that's what happened. And I'm just telling you, it did not happen. Lizards are lizards, and lizards reproduce other lizards. Birds are birds, and birds reproduce other birds, and that of their own kind. Archaeopterexes reproduce more Archaeopterexes. Well, there's a lot of other things we could talk about regarding that. But to further widen the gap, consider that reptiles are cold-blooded while birds are warm-blooded. Reptile bones are solid while birds are hollow. Birds have a different respiratory system, than any other animal. Reptiles have 5 toes. Birds have 4. Wonder how that happened. Reptiles have a 3-chambered heart while birds have a 4-chambered heart. And on and on and on we could go. The plain truth is that each species, as I said, reproduces after its own kind. Now, let me tell you about one other thing. Now, they have a coelacanth there in Washington. You know what a coelacanth is? A coelacanth is a fish, rather large fish, about this big, most of them, when they're adult. They can be 3 or 4 feet long. Well, now the coelacanth, you see, here's a book right here. I'll show you. This was at the Natural History Museum too. You can go there and see it right today. It's there. This fossil, well, not identical to this one, but there's a fossil of the coelacanth. This article in this book says the fish that couldn't be. And it says Professor Smith, who has discovered and named more than 100 species of the fish in his career, looked at this one with something like shock. And he says, quote, "My surprise would have been little greater if I had seen a dinosaur walking down the street. For this fish was one thought to have died out with the dinosaurs. It was known to scientists only from fossil impressions in rocks laid down millions of years ago." Here was a creature unchanged in more than 60 million years. Now that's what this says. I don't believe that, but that's what this says. Now, the point should be, what the scientists should be learning from that is that there was no change, that there's no evolution. But no, they said it remained the same for 60 million years. They did not get the point. The point that the fossil record is showing here is there's no evolution. None! Look, they've got here in the Natural History Museum, you've got this fossil, and then they've got a coelacanth, just like this one here, that's a stuffed coelacanth, okay? This here, look at this. I got this out of National Geographic. See this? I hope you all can see that. Can you see that, Jamie? Look, is it still good? All right, look at that. You see this woman here, a scuba diver, is swimming beside this coelacanth. You can see how large it is. Now, this coelacanth was supposed to have been 400 million years old, but they're still swimming around, and they're still identical to the supposedly 400 million year old fossils. I ask you again, where's the evolution? It isn't in the record, is it? It is not in the fossil record. So anyway, this is the kind of thing, I didn't have all these resources at my fingertips when we were up in Washington, but this is the kind of thing I kept trying to emphasize in my many lectures that I was giving. Well, I had a lot of interesting reactions to that. I'll tell you, we got about 4 minutes in the program left. I'll just tell you a little bit. I had, in that little segment, people they really don't want to be told that they came from monkeys or are on the same line of monkeys or had a common ancestor than monkeys. They really don't like that. And when I stood up and said, you were created by God, you know what? Many of those people, they actually applauded. I had a group of four or five teenager boys that sat through 3 movies just to see what I would say afterward. And they were part of the ones that were applauding. Had other people say amen. Now, I had plenty of detractors too. I had one old fella sitting down there on the front, and he tried to sick the dogs on me, tried to get the officials, and the officials came, and I saw them over there on my left. Of course, there was a camera up there too, watching me through all this, and I did this from about 11 o'clock till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was dead tired, worn out by the end of this adventure. But no, they never said a word to me. I was able to speak my mind and give a little balance to what was said there and the presentations that were made. And if you agree with me on these things, I want to encourage you to speak up. Because as long as people don't say anything, then this kind of thing will just continue on and on and on, and you're going to get, your children are going to be continually taught this, and that's one of the biggest problems in our world today, is that people believe they came from monkeys or something like that. Well, here's a point I'll leave you with. We've got just about a minute. Lizards have baby lizards, not birds. Birds have baby birds, and that of their own species. Cardinals have baby cardinals. Yellow finches have baby yellow finches. Archaeopterexes, when they were living, guess what they had? They didn't have anything other than baby Archaeopterexes. It's in the genetic code and can only vary slightly for the survival of the species. But one species does not become another species. A moth may change its color shade to adapt to a changing environment, but it's still a moth, and it will never become a different creature. Even within the insect family, it will never become a dragonfly or a ladybug or a termite. It will always be a moth. Well, we're about out of time for the program today. I hope you'll be back on the next one. Remember, call us if we can do anything for you. If you'd like a DVD of the program or audio, just let us know. We'll see you next time. Thank you.